Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. And today we've got the amazing Victoria Wilson James. Hi, Victoria, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Saskia?
Very
I'm
well,
doing
thank you.
great.
Thank you so much. And thank you for coming along today and sharing your story, your views, and your experiences in
Sure.
the industry. Really appreciate your time.
Pleasure, pleasure. Now, if you hear banging and clanging outside, they're doing some construction work right next door to the house.
Okay.
So they're taking down the scaffolding. So you know
Yeah,
what English British workmen are like. They're loud.
yes, they are. They're very, we'll get there. Let's tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do, Victoria.
Well, those that don't know me, my name is Victoria Wilson James, and I've been in the business since I was 8 years old. And I'm old. I'm an OG, as the youths call me.
Gee, yes.
And I suppose I got I trained most of my life in either piano or acting or dance or all of the above. And then I moved to Hollywood from the Midwest, from Indiana. Um, my aunt was an African American starlet in the 50s. And so she had left Indiana and really like did some films and worked with the legend Dorothy Dandridge. I'm sure some of your listeners may not know, but it's worth them Googling and finding out about the people whose shoulders they stand on, if you will.
Yeah.
So then I went to Hollywood and I ended up going to the getting accepted into the Los Angeles Academy of Theater Arts. And it's different there because the academy I attended did not study musical theater. As a matter of fact, they thought musical theater was a bad word.
Okay.
So I did that. Well, I didn't do that. I got kicked out.
What we
I
do.
was such a diva back then. But anyways, let me progress because otherwise I'll get lost in my train of thought. So as I was there, I was going to this legendary coach called Phil Moore, and he had a small workshop for very specific singers. And he was an old guy from Hollywood, one of the only Black big blockbuster musicals back in the day. He was a musical director and arranger, but he didn't get credit because he was Black. But
Right.
he also was the mentor and coach to Marilyn Monroe and Lena Horne. And there was, I don't know if you know the great jazz virtuoso Diane Reeves,
I
who
don't know.
is phenomenal. Yeah, she was in the class before me. So I went through that. I didn't get kicked out. Um, and then at the end of my second year, my housemate at the time was the protege of the great Liberace,
Right. Oh, cool.
right?
Right.
So I ended up getting connected by this guy that had the biggest running show in Las Vegas at the time. It was called the Bottoms Up Review. And what happened was is that they were looking to replace the woman that was going to retire. That was, the singer diva, I guess you will, of the show. And so he flew to Los Angeles to audition me. But what I didn't know is I was auditioning in the Bellage Hotel, which is between Sunset and Santa Monica, in the grand dining room with my accompanist. And I didn't know this. I mean, Breck, the guy that was auditioning me from Las Vegas, was there in the room with me.
Yeah.
But there was a bar that looked into the formal dining room. And none other than John Reed, Elton John's manager, was watching me go through my paces.
Wow.
So, long story short, like a day or so after, there was this big opening, and a lot of people that are in Los Angeles will know the legendary gay club called Studio One, but it also had a fabulous cabaret bar called the Back Lot. And so they were relaunching it. I went to the party and I met John Reed. I didn't know who he was. He said, I saw your audition today. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, I was watching you through the bar. He said, are you going to be going? Because he knew the guy that was auditioning me from Las Vegas,
Thanks for
the
letting me
Velvet Mafia, the Queens
know. Okay. Yeah.
of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Um, and so he said, I think you'd be wasting your time in that show. You should come to London and pursue a serious recording career. Gave me his card, said, I'd really like to see you there. Let's speak. Long story short, I ended up coming to London. He did nothing for me whatsoever. I came to London on January the 16th. I didn't even go to Rocket Records, who was Elton's label at the time, until March or April.
Yeah.
So, and even after that, he didn't do anything for me. So I was in London. Um, I didn't know anyone. I had like $600 in my pocket and had to pay for my hostel and all of that. And I just ended up, Saskia, was determined I was not going to go back a failure.
Yeah. I get
So I
you.
just started hustling. And then I got work in the initial phases as a background singer for rock bands this rock band called Greed on Red. I did Marillion, Iron Maiden, not Pet Shop Boys, Spandau.
Wow.
Um, and my management at the time put the brakes on me doing any background vocals either. I worked with Mark Allman, and he featured me on his Stars We Are album. But my manager said, you cannot do background work. I turned down 2 Pink Floyd tours that
Wow.
were paying so much money.
You just
I mean, 2 of my girlfriends did Pink Floyd. They bought houses in California, I mean, in Florida with a pool. Anyways, so I just started hustling, getting my name about and going to open mic nights. And I ended up meeting up with Soul to Soul through very uh, kismet. A girlfriend of mine who was also a session vocalist was here from LA, but she was going to do vocals for the techno group, the German techno group Yellow.
okay.
And this is the days before mobile phones.
Yeah, yeah.
Our offices were the phone boxes, the red phone boxes that you see in England all the time. And so she wanted to meet Soul to Soul. They had a shop that was really eponymous, of course, and all of this merchandise and all the kids were wearing. And I didn't really know that much about them. I'd heard about them. But anyway, she wanted to go to the shop to see if she could meet Jazzie B.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I went to the shop and I was looking at clothes, completely disinterested in what was going on. And the guy said, Jazzie's not here, but why don't you leave your phone number and I'll pass it on. So she said, can I leave your phone number too? She said to me, Victoria, because I'm going to Switzerland.
Yeah.
I said, sure. So long story short, he ended up calling Shea, my friend, but she wasn't there. She was in Switzerland. So he said, well, are you a singer as well? And I said, yeah. He said, well, would you be interested in maybe doing some work with us? And I was like, yeah, sure. Again, I didn't know who they were. And they hadn't really broken yet. They just had one record out called Fair Play, which people will know from the first album.
Yes, I do.
And I said, sure, I will. He says, well, let me send you some cassettes.
Yeah.
And he sent lots of demos on it, and I didn't like any of them.
Okay.
And so then I didn't really call back. And so he rang me, he said, did you get the tape and what are your thoughts? And I was like, well, I got the tape, but it's not for me.
Right.
And he said, why is it not for you? I said, it's just not something that I'm interested in pursuing, dumb me. And he said, well, why don't we go into the studio and do something that you do like? And I was like, okay, cool. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
And we went into this small little demo studio in sort of like near the British Museum. It was a really hot spot. We all the musos hung out at Matrix Studios, and it was a little demo studio. And the first thing that I recorded was "A Dream's a Dream."
I love that track.
Yeah, that was a really good track. It's done really well, and it was really critically acclaimed, which I was happy about. But then he said, well, we're going to use the track. And then I had several meetings with him, and they decided instead of me becoming a part of the band because Karen Wheeler was leaving,
Right, okay.
and for me to take over his spot, I did take over the big single on the second album, but I was signed as a solo artist.
Okay, so he wasn't part of the band as a group.
I was part of the band temporarily, but that was only to launch my solo career.
Okay, okay,
And
interesting.
so the Soul to Soul had signed me to Epic Records in the United States. So it was one of those dual deals. And I recorded my first album, Perseverance, which I guess is, from what I understand, is a collector's connoisseur's classic.
Yes, an
I
awesome
don't know.
record.
I don't really lean into that stuff, Sasa, because like celebrities are a pain in the ass. But so that did well enough.
Yeah,
And then Soul to Soul Lot and I fell out over creative differences.
yeah,
And so I left,
yeah,
tried to I got out of the Soul to Soul label
yes, yeah.
deal. But in those kind of deals, Sony has the final say, as if you don't get on with the small label, they can take over your
Yeah.
project. And that's precisely what they did.
Okay.
But I was so unhappy. And there's a legend, a titan of the industry, African American man by the name of Hank Caldwell.
Mhm.
And we really, really got on very, very well. And they were really, really sweet to me. But he said to me, he said, Victoria, a lot of artists have had greater success than you, but none of them that came through this door were as loved and admired
Oh,
as you. He says, I just want you to know that.
yeah.
And I said, I'm not doing another record with Soul to Soul, Uncle Hank. I used to call him Uncle Hank. I said, I'm not doing another record with him. He said, so you absolutely refusing? I said, yes.
Mhm.
He said, well, you know, we could sue you for breach of contract. I said, yes.
Oh
And so he says, but we're not going to do that. I'm gonna get you out of your soul to soul deal. But I'm gonna, well, no, he said, I'm gonna release you from Epic,
Yeah.
but then you will have to get out of your deal with soul to soul. So through some legal wranglings, I managed to get out of it.
Okay.
And then after that, it was really kind of like very lean, Saskia. There was not any work really coming in. I couldn't do background vocal work because my managers had already said, if you get pigeonholed as a background vocalist, you will never be perceived as a feature vocalist.
Great.
And if you've ever seen the movie 20 Feet from Stardom,
Mm-hmm.
about all of the great Black backing vocalists through the Stones and Leonard Skinner and all Darlene Love and Mary Clayton and Claudia Lanier, your young audience should Google these people. Um,
I know some of them.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to. They said you can't do that, and no, you can't do a Pink Floyd tour,
Wow.
even though it was topping out at $3,000 a week
Yeah.
for a 2-year contract.
Wow. Back then, that's a lot of money, right?
Heck yeah. I told you both of my girlfriends that did it ended up buying homes in Florida with pools.
Wow.
It was a good gig, but I wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
So, anyways, time went on. I guess it was about 3 years actually that I was just scrounging for whatever I could get,
Yeah.
writing, going into the studio with various young up and coming producers. And I shared a house with a bunch of artists, and one of the artists was a recording artist. His name was Mr. C, is Mr. C.
Yeah.
And we in the famous techno group, the Shamen.
Oh,
So
cool.
all those people that know easy good, easy good, he's having easy good, where they're talking about Molly, what they call now Molly, but it was called ecstasy back then. The song was about that. Nobody knew what it was. And the record had been at number one for 6 weeks on the BBC Radio One chart for 6 weeks before they figured out what it was that they were talking about. And then the band deleted the single, not Radio One.
Okay.
So what happened was we were sharing a house, and they had a vocalist, the legendary Delisa Anderson, who's from the family of James Brown, Carlene Anderson, Vicki Anderson, all of those people. She had a real pedigree, but wasn't really happy with singing techno. And there was some sort of confusion about whether she would do this big gig.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it was up and kind of touch and go whether she actually would or not.
Yeah.
And so my friend Richard, Mr. C, came and said, she might not do the gig. Can you learn the set in
Okay.
case we have to feather you in to
Yeah.
replace her? I said, sure. I've heard it all. You've been playing it to death. Um, and so she ended up doing the gig. But then after, I guess they parted ways, and they had a whole big European tour coming up. And they asked me if I wanted to, take the spot. So now I'm just a hired gun.
Yeah.
So I did that for a few years and did the Axis Mutatis album. Crazy album, very abstract and experimental. But it was fun because I ended up doing the European tour, and where it was very stressful with Soul to Soul, especially being one of the key divas on their great and only world tour.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of pressure, Saskia. And
Imagine.
I thought I wanted fame, but
Mhm.
then when I got it, I didn't want it anymore.
Fair enough.
It was about the music, but it was a good thing because it made me realize that my true passion was the music and writing and singing and performing, and recording. So I did that for 6 years. I joined the band in 1993. I was made a full member, I think, in 1998, where I'd get an equal split of all the band's profits, merchandising, everything. And then we split up in 1999, but not through anybody having any fights or disgruntlement. It was just more like Colin, the guy that really started the Shamen, because he had a partner, Will Sin, who actually drowned. It's music legend. When they were making the Forever People video in the Lake District, he actually drowned and died. So I ended up becoming a full member of the band, I think, in 1998.
Yeah.
So that was 6 years. In 1999, we all split up. And then in between that, I got signed to Sony again,
Okay.
only this time Sony Germany.
Yeah.
And now I'm making my sophomore album, my second album,
Yeah.
which was going to be released by Sony Dance Pool. So I was working with all these amazing dance producers and doing techno at the same time. It was very heady times. It was one of the best times in my life and in my career. I had so much fun. Then after that, I just, set about as a solo artist. My second album didn't do great, even though I had, some stellar producers on there, and they did pump a lot of money into it. It just just didn't work. And I think the reason why I didn't is because my heart wasn't into that either.
Wow. Okay.
I was still being very much controlled as to what my catalog would be, what my sound would be. And
Yeah.
I wasn't unhappy because they treated me really, really well. It's just more creatively and artistically, but not as much as I was with Soul to Soul.
I get you. I get you. Yeah.
So I did have some, they gave me a lot of, well, I got to executive produce the album, but I didn't get to really veto that many producers that they wanted me to work with. It was pretty much, you're going to do what we say.
Old. Yeah.
And I had my lawyer build in all these loopholes in the contract. And so I called my lawyer and said, I want to invoke this clause or this article. And he would send them a letter, and the managing director, who I loved, said, "Okay, we'll capitulate on all these things that you said that you want to call breach of contract on us,
Hmm.
but we will release the album, but we won't promote the album.
Right.
So we'll do our contractual obligations,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you won't get anything else."
Was the tick box.
So I went through that whole thing, and it was kind of fun because between that I was doing the Shaman and my solo album as well, working on their album, doing the European tour, having a blast, and recording my sophomore album. So after that, I'd pretty much established myself, and a lot of people wanted to work with me. So I started working with various people, and then I did another album, and then another album, and then I did a lot of dance singles, a
Yeah.
lot.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm also an actor, so when music wasn't paying the bills, I would do theater,
Yeah. Yes. A lot of artists do that.
which I love just as much.
Yeah.
Musical theater is kind of tough because it's 8 shows a week,
Yes, I can imagine. It's very full on.
and it's really, really tough. I just did a development rehearsal for this brand new musical that is absolutely phenomenal. And they actually wrote the role for me, and it's a very good role. And they wrote an amazing song for me. And I'm not even a major character, but I'm the character that drives the storyline because I play a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I do musical theater or legitimate theater. I got to play Ella Fitzgerald in one piece that I did, which was really hard because Ella's a contralto soprano. I mean, a mezzo soprano. I'm a contralto, so the keys were completely. And the musical director was this genius, but the way that he wrote vocals and the way um, everything was arranged was really, really challenging. And I had to morph into Ella Fitzgerald at her heyday in the 50s and sing Mac the Knife.
Get you.
And I had like a 2-minute change because my other part of the character was an LA cop. And it's a long, protracted storyline, but I had 2 minutes to morph into Ella Fitzgerald. And it always took the audience by storm because it was like, bap, 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 wig on, gown on,
Yeah.
hanky in my hand, and then saying Mac the Knife. And it always surprised me. So that was fun. So I did that, did a couple films, did a couple pilots that didn't really pan out. Um, and then at the same time, I was always going into the studio working with this person, that person, or another. And then I think it was like in 2002, my best friend opened the label. So I signed all of my catalog to his label
Okay.
to administer for me as an administration deal. Um, and then, yeah, I was just doing a lot of stuff. I worked with, I found my partner, my musical partner, a guy called Nick C, who is a genius programmer. He becomes the software. I've never met anybody like him. I've never worked with anybody like him. He can do anything. He
Also,
can do full on. If I know the string arrangements in the notes, he can make it sound like a Stradivarius violin or a whole string quartet. It sounds exactly
very
like
different.
acoustically like that. So I've been working with him ever since. And then I guess around just before COVID, I had done a cover of Sweat by CNC Music Factory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and the reason why I did it is because CNC Music Factory were on the same label as me
Right.
when I had my first deal with Sony.
Yeah.
And David, what's his name? It's Robert Clavillis and David Cole,
Okay.
Clavillis and Cole.
Yeah.
And we met outside Sony. He says, I love your record. I love your sound. Really love for you to do something. I was like, I love your sound. I really want to do something. I ran back into the label and said, David Cole wants me to do something for CNC. I want to do it. And they were like, slow your roll. We have other plans for you. And I was like, oh. So anyways, I just love the song so much. And I love Martha. Martha Wash is just, She's a legend.
Yeah.
Love her. Just as kind and unassuming and unegotistical with that voice. And I thought, how am I going to do this? So, anyways, that happened right before COVID.
Hmm.
And then COVID kicked in. And that, well, we know the story to that.
Yeah.
But then after COVID lifted a little bit, I went in because I produce and direct my own videos as well.
Yeah.
So I
Wow.
went in and did a video to Sweat. It's not out in the public domain yet. I'm just waiting for the right time. So yeah, I did a film last year, done loads of recording, lots and lots of writing. Yeah, that's it. My life is pretty boring.
Busy bee. It sounds like a complete roller coaster ride, Victoria, that you've had
Oh, it's oh
industry.
my God, you can't imagine.
Wow.
It was insane.
So how important has networking been in your career and getting you to where you are today? How important has that been for you and your career and your success?
Well, Saskia, I'll tell you, I'm a bit of a recluse. And I learned that in Hollywood. My landlady was a silent film star,
Right.
the great Miss Georgia Hale. And my coach, Phil Moore, would say, and this was before social media, before mobile phones. I don't even think fax machines were out. So that goes to show you it's like how old I am. But he said, you're one of these artists that you don't have to put yourself out there. You don't have to turn up to the opening of an envelope at a supermarket.
Mhm.
He said, let your mystique work for you. And so networking, okay, a little bit.
Yeah.
But the way I kind of engineered the Victoria Wilson James brand is that you didn't always get an audience with her.
Okay.
And it wasn't because I was being the grand diva. It's just because I learned in Hollywood that the more they see you, the more they start to see the joins and the smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
And if you want to really keep your brand immaculate, then don't be so available,
Right.
which is the reason why I'm not on social media now. I
Yeah.
have an Instagram account,
Mhm.
and I think somebody has pirated a Facebook account. My team are dealing with that. Why? Because I shut my Facebook account like 8 years ago completely
Okay.
because I can't deal with all the noise.
A lot.
I'm an
Yeah.
artist.
Yeah.
I'm very sensitive. I'm bipolar.
Yeah. Okay.
So I can
I
be
get it.
triggered quite easily, even though I'm very disciplined about how I manage my bipolar disorder.
Yeah.
But it just got to be the point, Saskia, that I'd go on Facebook, and when it was new, and even before that, MySpace.
Yeah. I remember MySpace back in the day.
Yep. So I was really happy about that because it was a brand new thing.
Mm.
And then MySpace declined, and then Facebook happened. I was happy about that. I was active on Facebook. But then after the novelty wore off, I thought, I'd go on Facebook and I'd look at all the posts and I'd reply and I would engage. And then all of a sudden, it just started to feel
It drains you, doesn't
weird.
it? It drains your energy and your
It
creativity.
does. And so I was like, I don't want to do this
Mhm.
all day, in between in an entire day. So what I will do is I'll go on 3 times a day. And then it was like still too much.
That's
Two
a lot.
times a day,
That's a lot.
1 time a day,
Sometimes too
once a week. And it was just like, I can't take it anymore. I don't like this. I'm not interested in what this onslaught of information that really doesn't benefit me.
right.
I mean, as much as I love people and them living their best lives, I really don't need to know what people had for breakfast or brunch or where they went on holiday or look at their cute dog or cat or kid.
And a lot of it's show as well, isn't it? It's not the authentic lifestyle that
No, their lives are so curated and everybody knows that it's not real.
that's the thing I've got with that. It seems all like it's super great when we all know that's not no one's got a lifestyle like that. So I find it a bit,
No,
fake.
even Beyonce doesn't have the life of the Beyonce that,
Right.
other people, her contemporaries that are just as successful, almost as successful. But the business, Saskia, it's geared like all corporations. The music industry is a corporation,
Yeah.
and they stopped caring about the music a long, long time ago. Like in the late 80s, mid 80s, it became, A&R used to be the one that would run and engineer an artist's career, and then it became accountants and lawyers.
Hmm.
So they didn't care about the art of it at all. They just cared about the bottom line.
Or the people either. And this is another problem that we still have in the music industry. It's very much a commercial business and it's all about money. It's not about the people. It's not about the art. It's not about the creativity. It's about the money and the
But
return.
it's parallel in all businesses, the same way in film, television, fashion.
Yeah.
You have one of the biggest luxury brand parent companies, LVMH, I think it's Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy,
Oh, yeah.
um, that has all these high-end, even couture um,
I love couture.
houses, maisons.
Yeah.
Um, it's just they don't care about it.
Mm.
They just care about the money.
It's a shame.
And so it's very disheartening to only see yourself as a commodity for the record label. And I realized just how much of a commodity I was when I got dropped from both deals and I couldn't get my copyright back.
Right. So you
So
didn't
they
have
still
any.
own my publishing, never paid me for it. Sony never accounted me for my publishing royalties for 15 years,
So sorry. That's awful. That's really.
notwithstanding that I was sending. And of course, I went to my lawyer and they said, look, we can sue them, but it's going to cost you a lot of money because they're going to drag it out.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, even though my lawyer was one of the biggest music and entertainment litigators and
Mhm.
really hardly ever charged me anything,
Oh, that's
even
good.
for major contract work,
Yeah. Yeah.
he says, it's going to cost a lot of money, Victoria, and I'm not sure it's going to be worth it to you in the end.
But yeah. That's you've got the good advice.
So,
It wasn't
I
worth.
mean, the same thing with Soul to Soul became quite litigious and legal, fraught with legal things, but I ended up getting out of that in an okay way because of settling out of court sort of thing.
God for that.
So yeah, and that's what I've been doing. That's what I do all day, every day. I don't have a big social life.
Yeah.
Um, I try to avoid music industry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you to your question, your point about networking, I do, but in a certain way. Because what I found out a long time ago is that me not what Phil told me and what my management told me, um, it does work out to my favor,
Yeah.
that I'm not available.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the things in my new campaign that's going to happen, because I've got a brand new album coming out that I'm waiting for just the right time. They're going to I'm going to set up a campaign whereby my supporters will not be able to reach me via social media.
Okay.
I will
That's
have a mobile app.
yeah. 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 Okay. That's a good idea.
My IT person is designing the mobile app. So if you want to know what Victoria Wilson James is doing, you have to come directly to my app.
And then it'll just have an automated reply system to it or something.
I'd
Or
rather have 10 legitimate supporters than a bunch of
yeah.
keyboard terrorists.
Well, they say 100. All you need is 100 true fans, is what they say to have a career, right? And if those true fans believe in you, they'll buy your goods and support you and come to your
Well,
show.
I'm going to make it really easy for them because I'm going to have loads of giveaways. I'm going to do interviews and talks, but only available on my mobile app,
Fair enough.
which will. And I was just speaking to a potential new publicist,
Yeah.
and I was telling him, you have said, I'm not on social media. I have no intentions going on social media. And the most recent times that I was on social media, somebody did it as me.
Yeah. Okay. So it was an impersonator. Just
No, I mean with my blessing, and of course everything was cleared by me, but I didn't have to put in the time at the keyboard responding because it was one of my best friends in
yeah.
the whole wide world who knows me inside out.
Okay. That's
And
good.
they get off on it. They enjoy
Yeah.
feeling like a celebrity or, someone famous. It's like, go for it because
Right.
enjoy yourself.
Yeah. That's cool.
And so that's kind of where I am with the latest project. Yeah,
Cool.
that's where I am. I hope I didn't prattle on too long.
We've got 8 minutes left on our call right now, and I want to
Oh
ask
my
you.
God, I'm so sorry.
Don't say sorry. It's awesome. We've learned so much. I've got two questions for you.
Go.
Firstly, how important are contracts? And secondly, on reading those contracts. And secondly, how can people find you, connect with you, or follow the work that you do?
Well, contracts are very, very dodgy.
Yeah.
How to read them, it became a necessity for me, and I had a great lawyer that taught me. So
Mhm.
now I can read my own contracts. And I just had two tracks put out last year, techno tracks, one this year and one last year. One was called um, oh God, I don't even remember the name of the song, but it's with Ralph Falcon from Merck Records.
Okay.
And yeah, Merck and Miami, so they're the same people, Ralphie Falcon and Oscar G. That was the year before. This year they relaunched the Revolution, which was a huge record.
Yeah.
So we did Revolution 23.
Well done.
And it was one of those situations with regards to contracts that because of the contract, when the record was first released in 2000, the label wouldn't release any of the parts, like any of the WAVs or my vocals or anything. So I had to go into the studio and re-record it. But that's one of the examples of, a contract. And know this, that whatever contract you get into, and of course, I'm a mentor for Power to Inspire,
Okay.
which is a great mentor program that my girlfriend set up for young uh, Black and brown
I'll leave a link.
people that want to have a career in the music industry. It's called Power Number Two Inspire. I urge your listeners to and your viewers to look it up because it's free, and
Okay.
they get to interface with people like Alicia Keys or Salt and Pepper, or always the highest supervisors, music industry lawyers, managers, artists. Gaga's manager, for example, was on last year's. So, anyways, contracts, they're never going to be in the favor of the artist.
Never. I'm getting.
Secondly, at these days, you don't need a label.
Mhm.
And the other thing that you have to watch out for in contracts is they will own your copyright.
Okay. So you will
So all of your songs, all your compositions, and the recordings that they will not belong to you. That's part of a deal structure these days.
Right.
And so that's the way I feel about contracts. Be careful,
Mhm.
learn how to read a contract.
Very
You can
important.
do that. You have to put the time in. I didn't ever want to learn these things, Saskia. I had to as a matter of being able to survive. So that's the way I feel about contract. And what's the second question?
How can people find you and connect with you and follow you and find out the work that you're doing in the music?
That's a good question. Uh, I'm not on social media,
No.
and my mobile app isn't up. But if they want to see my music, it's odd that most of the things that are up on YouTube I didn't put up. The Wikipedia page I didn't write, and neither did any of my former teams. It
Very,
just appeared one day and
very,
accurately.
yeah, well done.
So they just have to kind of look out. And that's one of the things that the publicist said, being aloof and being mysterious is going to work in your favor because everybody else is so like blasting social media. And it's
Okay.
good that you've done that. And he's a top publicist for like major motion pictures
Learning. I'm learning.
that he's considering taking me on. So in order to find me, just have to wait and see and look out. And that's what I want people, because when somebody gives you a gift, a lot of times, okay, if it's sentimental values, you value it. But like if you give somebody your record, oh, listen to my record, they don't
Yeah.
listen to it.
Or they
They
copy it,
don't value it.
or they'll copy it. Because some people have done that as well. Some people, oh yeah, I like that. I'll incorporate that into my own stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We all do a little bit of plagiarism here and there because there's nothing new. Like I tell my mentees in Power to Inspire,
Yes.
there are no new chord progressions
Mm-hmm.
in the Western scales. Now, if you go into Arabic and Indian and Asian, they sing in eighth tones. We only do quarter tones, full tones, full notes, full tone, half tone. They do quarter
Right.
and eighths
So they got
and
me.
all of these riffs like you hear in Indian music that's not in our scale,
Yeah.
which is something interesting to learn. I worked with somebody on that. It's really hard.
Love that
Yeah,
for them.
so with regards to reaching me, it's kind of like watch this space, and moreover, watch your space because you'll be one of the first people I'm going to alert.
Well, I will be one of those people that share your work and help support the work that you're doing. You're awesome. Thank you so, so much. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for kind sharing your
Oh,
work.
it's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I can't wait to
And
meet you in person, honestly. It's gonna
and
be.
happy Christmas.
Oh, thank you, and you too. Hopefully I'll see you before Christmas though.
That would be great. Let's meet up for a coffee or a cocktail. I don't drink alcohol, but we can meet up for a coffee or a lunch.
Yeah, let's do that. A lunch.
Well, you're so busy with your family life.
Listen,
You just let me know what works for you.
I'm gonna make time for you. Don't you worry about that. Thank you
I
so
would
much.
love that.
God bless you and stay
God
awesome.
bless you too, Saskia. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye. Stop the recording.